Hello, this is Justin Gilbertson. I study at Hallmark University in the Aeronautics department. This is my midterm assignment for speech class. This is week 5, so I hope you enjoy. So my assignment is I have to pick 2 of these topics and talk about them. So for my first topic, it says, Number 1, tell me about the impact of bright side and dark side messages applied to your career and personal life. Does the way you convey your message impact your integrity? Why or why not? So the bright side and the dark side of aviation, A&P mechanic. The bright side is we're doing what we love. This is our passion. Me personally, I always wanted to be a pilot. I loved airplanes, and when I got into high school, I started working on cars, became an automotive mechanic, and when I decided to go to college, I joined the two and thought it would be the best choice to be an aviation mechanic. So that's one of the bright sides of this particular career field is us few who actually want to get into aircraft maintenance. We're passionate about it, and this is what we love doing, or else we wouldn't have gone in this field. And one of the dark sides of the career field is actually what a lot of us don't know, is that for A&P mechanics, we have to work 6 months out of the preceding 2 years. If we don't work 6 months out of 2 years, then we lose our license, and we have to go through the whole program over again, which would not be good. And so that's specifically designed to narrow down the very few who want to get their A&P mechanic because they know that they have to work 6 months out of the 2 years. And so they're determined to work. They're determined to work, and they're very determined in this career field because they know the requirements. Does this way convey your message impact your integrity? Does it impact your integrity? I think it very much so does, because for the bright side, our integrity is that this is our passion and we love doing it, and so we're gonna have the integrity to do a good job. And also for the dark side, because people who are looking for A&P mechanics, they know who have their A&P license that these people know that they have to work 6 months out of the 2 years in order to keep their license valid. So they know that if they have that license, they're going to be determined, they're going to want to work, so that way they can keep their license valid. For my second main topic, I went with number 4. Why is it important that you are aware of your own and others' nonverbal cues? How do you use nonverbal communication to understand if your message is understood? Name 3 observable nonverbal cues in your response. So nonverbal cues. The first nonverbal cue that I can think of is one of your classmates probably doesn't like you. You go up to talk to them, and they're kind of distant. They don't really make eye contact with you, which is the nonverbal cue. If they're trying to do something else and they kind of glance at you because they don't want to look rude, they glance at you and they're not really engaged in the conversation. That's your nonverbal cue that maybe they don't want to talk to you, which is perfectly fine. We have friends, and we have people who we don't exactly connect with, which is perfectly fine. That's human nature. The second nonverbal cue that I can think of is if you're working with a teammate and you two are working on an aircraft engine, and he's on the exhaust side, and there's only one component, like a one-person job that you need to do, and you're there and you're like trying to help and stuff, and he starts getting quiet with you, and that's your nonverbal cue, like probably something's up, and he starts getting quiet and he's just trying to do his job, and you're in there butting in, trying to do his work. That's your nonverbal cue that you should probably ask him, like, hey, are you good? Should I go on to something else? Is there anything else you want me to do? And then he's like, oh yeah, you can work on the inlet side. And you're like, oh, perfect. So that was your nonverbal cue to understand how your teammate thought and their thought process and trying to help each other. And the third nonverbal cue, you can think of this as a teacher who is trying to grade your paper or a quiz. Let's go with a quiz. So you just finished a quiz, and you get up and you go to the teacher and you're like, hey, I want to know my score. And he's like, okay, just kind of give me a second. And he's focusing on what he has to do, and he's not really paying attention to you. That's your nonverbal cue. He's not exactly saying it, but he's saying it with his actions. So you're there, you're like, hey, I want to know what I got. I'm excited. And he's like, okay, just give me a second. And he starts getting quiet with you, and he's focusing on what he has to do. You need to look at that. And you need to understand that he's trying to do a task. He's trying to get it done. And you bothering him is hindering him from doing that. And that's actually going to prolong the period you're going to have to wait for your test even longer. So there's really no point. And that's your third nonverbal cue. So understanding those three, whether a person wants to talk to you or not, or you are trying to do a project, or you're waiting on a task, those are the three main ones that you need to take into consideration. And don't only look at what they say, but their actions, how they engage in the conversation with you, kind of tells a lot more than them actually speaking. I guess for the extra credit, it says, how will you use these concepts to achieve success as an employee and within your community? So with the first topic that I talked about, the bright side and the dark side of the career field, how does the understanding of these concepts achieve success as an employee? So understanding the dark side in particular really gives you a step up in your success in the career field. So employers are going to know that you have to work 6 months out of the 2 years in order to be a mechanic. They know that you know that because it's in the FARs, the Federal Aviation Regulations. So we have to know that, and it's by law that we have to follow it. So how employers are going to look at that is they're going to see these people with these A&P mechanics certificates. They're going to see them as loyal. They're going to want to work, and they know how hard it's going to be. So that really does give them a step up from other certificates. And for the second topic that I made, understanding nonverbal cues, how will understanding this concept achieve success as an employer? It'll achieve success in anything. Understanding nonverbal cues will give you a step up in success. So when you're going in, let's say for an interview, and your interviewee or your manager who's interviewing you, they start yawning or they're kind of leaning back and they're not really engaged in the conversation and they don't really understand what you're talking about, or you could tell they're kind of getting sleepy. That's your nonverbal cue that they're getting bored of you, and that's your cue to maybe engage them in an interesting topic, or entertain them with an interesting story that you had in that career field. So that'll really give you a step up in your success compared to other people who might be interviewing, and they just start getting more and more boring, and the manager who's interviewing y'all, he sees you who takes that nonverbal cue and you flow with it and you adjust to what he wants the interview to look like, which will really give you a success in the interviewing process. So that's it for this video. Again, this is my week 5 midterm exam for Hallmark University speech class. Thank you very much for listening, and hope you have a good day. Thank you.